Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
I'm Chris Clements.
In my best radio announcer voice.
Oh, you have a face made for radio.
That's right. That's what they told me at Cronkite School. Yes, I was a broadcasting major, for those that may not know that. And
so here you are in your calling. Natural calling.
Long time coming. I mean, that was 30 years ago.
Yeah. Well, and we've been doing this
for quite a while.
Yes.
So the next episode is going to be our official
4-year
anniversary episode. Looking forward to that.
We'll be going down memory lane.
Yes.
And what a lane it has been.
What a lane.
To go, I think I said it to you the other day, go from like soft, nice NPR to FAFO.
Yeah. Right. Well, it's definitely changed. If you want to see things that in the evolution, and you just see a quick change, just watch the first couple episodes and compare them to the episodes now.
Good Lord.
It's a little different.
Yes.
A little different.
A little different. So, Sean, what's happening in the world today?
Well,
do we know?
There's
a little skirmish happening
in D.C. with
National Security.
National Security. Mike Waltz, who's the National Security Director, apparently inadvertently invited Jeff Goldberg from the Atlantic into a
who's not a fan of the administration.
No, not at all. Into a Signal chat group that had to do with the Houthis, and it included, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, Vice President J.D. Vance, among others, 18, I think, total. And they were talking about, how to deal with the Houthis and the way that Jeff Goldberg has it framed it that these were war plans, is how he describes them. I don't know if that's war plans as much as just tactics.
It was a general discussion, and there was some discussion as to the fact that Donald Trump had to approve whatever plans they were putting in place. And it was a general back and forth about the plans. Yeah. But nothing overly specific nothing overly damning.
And nothing damning, because if this is exactly what you would expect from this administration on how to deal with this. And I read the texts that were made public, and there was nothing alarming.
No.
I mean, it is alarming that Jeff Goldberg got a hold of him, that he was invited into the group somehow.
And do you think that was a staffer that's inadvertently did that? I know nothing about Signal, so
I don't know
apparently
anything about Signal either.
Apparently, you can just use your initials, and that signifies who you are within the chat.
Well,
you can be somewhat anonymous.
I suppose. I don't know, but
I've used WhatsApp, but I've never used Signal.
Yeah, I've not used Signal either. And so it probably was not smart to do a group chat on Signal that includes potentially classified information.
Yeah, that seems a little odd.
So there's going to be some corrective activity. Now, I don't think.
I guess people are calling for Mike Waltz's head.
Yeah, they're definitely calling for resignation or firing. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that Trump probably isn't happy about this, but he's not going to let this kind of thing be, a black eye on his administration that big enough, because if he takes action like that, then that becomes the first of many, right?
Well, because the press and Trump's detractors continually try to drive a wedge between himself and the people around him who are advising him.
Right.
That's the tactic. You see that with Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Right. And so if they can drive a wedge between he and his national security team, then they can influence, Trump to do.
Look,
or the belief is they can influence Trump to do whatever.
Right. And, you're not. It seems a little bit foolish for the press to think that they can drive a wedge between Trump and his top advisors. I just don't think that's that's going to be the case.
I think what it illustrates is they were all on the same page.
Right. This is very different than had it been Trump won his first term, because he had, people who were not on the same page.
No.
And
who would have leaked it to Jeffrey Goldberg?
Invited Jeffrey Goldberg as a matter of course. Yeah. So I don't know. This was a stupid mistake.
Yeah. The question to Mike Waltz, I guess, is had he been communicating with Jeffrey Goldberg, all along or before? And Jeff Goldberg says, no, I received a encrypted request to join in the chat by somebody calling himself Mike Waltz, who I just thought was...
Well, I think the way he described it, he initially thought that he was the victim of a potential disinformation campaign by the Russians or something else. But
that's what he said in the article, which you can read all about it in the Atlantic.
Yeah, not a great look.
But to his credit, you got to, he received this some hours before the strikes on the Houthis, which, to the credit of the national security team, thank you for striking the Houthis after all these years. With Joe Biden didn't nothing.
Do crap. Yeah.
But to Jeffrey Goldberg's credit, and he's obviously a detractor of this administration, has been for years, detractor in many ways. He kept it all quiet.
Yeah.
He didn't blow the whistle,
until afterwards.
Yeah. Once the strikes began.
Well, I think
until now, really.
Right. I think he probably recognized that it would have looked very bad for him.
Oh, yes.
To do that.
Well, but that's to his
also,
credit.
Right. It seems to me that the honorable thing to do, the minute he recognizes that, he does a check, he checks with somebody. Hey, is this legit?
Yeah.
Are these, and then excuse himself from the chat. Say, I am going to, I have obviously been.
That's a great point.
Inadvertently put on this. I am going to exit from this.
Which you have
the
ability to do.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah. And so that backlash, I'm sure, is coming.
Yeah, it will raise questions about journalistic integrity and all those kinds of things. And frankly, at this point, I don't think there are many journalists who give a shit about journalistic integrity, because they want to be able to get the scoop, they want to get the information, then they don't really care.
And drive the news cycle, which is what he's doing as of today.
Yeah. So
no, that's a great point. He could have excused himself from the chat, said, obviously this is a mistake. I do not need to be on this.
It happens to everybody. We all get texts we aren't supposed to get. I will give you an example. I was involved in the precursors of what could have been litigation. And I received, I was going back and forth by email with the party and their attorney. And then I received an email from their attorney, which was clearly meant for the party. And, pointing out all the different things that he thought that I was wrong about, and maybe you should handle it this way, and maybe you should do this. And I emailed him back and I said, I'm going to delete this email because I don't think I was the recipient that was the expected recipient.
Yeah.
And he just sent back, thank you very much. Because he realized he'd made a huge mistake.
Yeah.
It went away. It was great. So, but the point is that we get emails, we get texts, we get involved in group chats, whatever, that, we don't have any control over, but we do have the ability to take ourselves out of that.
Yes.
So whether it's a Facebook, I've been looped in on Facebook groups that are just wild, like hardcore right-winger things. And I'm just like, man.
Because they need you there, Sean.
Yeah, right.
They need you to be the voice of reason. Yeah. So that we'll see what the fallout is. I don't think Mike Waltz goes anywhere. I don't think that if something egregious was in that group chat about the president or something of that nature, or some hardcore dissension within the ranks, that would be the scandal. But
yeah,
there was none of that. There was a lot of like fist pumping and
right. This
bro
whole
talk.
signal gate is like, well, I mean, inadvertently adding a journalist into this group is not really the kind of scandal that really creates a scandal. I mean, the scandal would be if J.D. Vance said, I can't believe the president is thinking about this or not doing this, or, or Tulsi Gabbard saying something off the rails, anything that would have been, that would have showed dissension within the ranks. That becomes the story.
That becomes the story.
That's a scandal. But that wasn't it at all.
No.
You're right. This showed uniformity of purpose and goals. And I think that is exactly what the American people expect.
Yeah. And
from this administration.
And that's how they're spending it. And I think it's the correct spin.
Well, they don't have to spin it.
That's how they're explaining it in the context of this is how a real team operates. This is how these discussions take place. And it's unfortunate that this mistake was made in looping in Mr. Goldberg. However, you got a front row seat at how the sausage is made, and we like making the sausage.
Well, and they do a good job of it. Yeah. I mean, you would not see this kind of uniformity if this had been a Joe Biden administration chat group at all.
No.
Or even Obama.
It would have been all about, well, I mean,
or Trump won.
We know what it would have been about with Joe Biden. It would be about, don't wake him because we're doing this. Don't get him up just yet. Yeah. Until we have all this ready to go, and there'd be a lot of vitriol going back and forth about the president, which was unfortunate about, that reality.
So this is a little bit of a shift.
Oh, we're shifting.
Yeah. You've raised some concerns about Pam Bondi at the Department of Justice. But then in the last couple of days, you've had, her name is Alina Habba or something like that.
Oh, yeah. She's going to be
she's the U.S. attorney for New York.
New York. She's leaving the administration to be the acting U.S. attorney for New York. She'd been the Trump's personal attorney.
So she's going to be U.S. attorney.
She'd been representing him in all the various.
Is she doing Southern District
cases.
of New York, or is it the?
I'm not sure, but
anyway. So she's now saying
she's really good.
That she's going through the Epstein files and that they're going to be released.
Well, that's probably because you think Pam was in the Epstein files. No. I don't know. No, my issue with Pam is she's a grandstander, and the work isn't getting done. I mean, this is a perfect example. And she's on Jesse Waters every night, or she's on Hannity, or she was on Maria Bartiromo on the weekend. And I read this. I'm not watching it. I'm reading about it. I'm like, she's saying all these things, but it doesn't seem like the work is getting done.
And like I said last time, I mean, it may be that she's doing her work, and then after hours, she's doing her Fox hits.
Is she getting paid?
I don't know. I mean, she's not for Fox.
Is she a Fox contributor?
No. I mean, she might have been at some point, but
I'm contrasting that. Alina's, she was doing that for a time when she was Trump's personal attorney, and she was giving recaps of what was going on in the courtroom when he was being dragged up in the New York courtroom, or down in Georgia, or down in Florida. So that was her context of being that. I just, for Attorney General, just stop talking. Go do your job. There's enough to do. Contrast that with Kash Patel. Never hear from Kash.
Yeah,
Kash has
got his head down and working.
He's got his head down, and he's got enough to do with the mess that's been created over the last 20 years that he doesn't need to go on Jesse Waters giving a daily recap.
Right. Yeah.
And I just find it irritating.
Okay. Well, so
she's kind of a tart.
We'll see what happens with these Epstein files.
Well, I mean, the JFK files keep coming.
Yeah.
Didn't they release another 60,000 like Friday?
Oh, did they do another?
I thought they did. I thought I heard that this morning. That and all that's and there is precisely what we talked about last week. I mean, the only thing that seems to be smoking gunish is, I mean, how the CIA was everywhere.
Yeah. Just a lot of
in every embassy. We didn't have embassies; they were CIA offices. Probably still are. Yeah. I don't think that's a big revelation.
No, it just I think it confirmed what a lot of people have assumed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, our embassies are just offices, CIA outposts.
Yeah.
The ambassador might not be, but I'm sure they're specifically trained in some of those methods.
Right.
When they go assume the post.
Yeah.
You think Jeff Flake was a CIA operative in Turkey?
I
might have been.
I don't know.
I mean, well, Jeff's smart enough.
He's definitely.
It's not
smart
like
enough.
Turkey's a friend.
It's an open question.
Yeah,
I mean, definitely for you.
Well, personally, I
As
like
an Armenian,
Jeff. I like Jeff.
You don't like Turkey.
I'm not a fan of the old Ottoman Empire or the Republic of Turkey that still refuses to acknowledge that the old Ottoman Empire slaughtered over 1 million Armenians.
Yeah.
Refuses. It's 2025. They won't.
They still
acknowledge
don't.
it. No.
That's just bizarre.
It's sick.
I don't understand that.
Yeah.
Huh.
So.
Well.
And there's still, conflicts in that region between the Armenians, the Azerbaijanians, and to a certain extent the Turks. So, not good.
Yeah.
So, but Jeff is no longer there. He's
no. He's at ASU.
Yeah.
Doing I'm trying to remember the name of it. A center for
it's not Skettle.
No.
Not our
the Skettle. That's
that would be a heavy lift for him.
That is a great program. Please watch the episode if you haven't yet. We had the director on, Richard. He was
Richard
great.
Avramenko.
Yeah, he was. That was a
that sounds like a KGB agent, doesn't it?
Oh my God!
But we know he's Canadian.
Devolved. Yeah.
We know
Speaking
he's Canadian.
of Canada.
Yes,
they've called on a snap election, so it'll be April 28th, I think.
What's your prediction?
Well,
that just happened like in the last 48 hours.
Yeah, Trump has created a problem for our friend Pierre.
Yes.
The Liberals.
Pierre Poilievre.
The Liberals have, because they booted Trudeau and they've got this new guy whose name I've now forgotten. They probably, because of the anger at the United States over tariffs, that kind of thing, the whole idea of the 51st state, that kind of stuff that Trump is doing, it may be a referendum on who's going to stand up to Trump.
Yeah, and Trump has definitely created that.
Yeah,
which was unnecessary.
It will be. I think
it was fine early on, but he made his point. He got Trudeau down to Mar-a-Lago, smacked him around a little bit, made him look foolish. That you won.
Yeah.
Like you won. Stop. Let Pierre do his thing. You made him look foolish. You made him look like a total clown. Stop.
Yeah. So
don't prop him up with tariff threats.
It depends a little bit on what the tariffs look like going into that election.
Yeah. I think they're
because April 2nd, I think, is the new date for and obviously
reciprocal tariffs.
Yeah, obviously there's news over the weekend. The tariff he's pulling back on some of the tariff threats that created a huge bounce in the market yesterday. Huge bounce.
Well,
especially some stocks.
Trump is going to recognize when something is unpopular, and one thing you have to give him credit on things of this nature is that he knows when to pivot.
Yeah.
And he'll pivot, and he'll have a good story as to why he's pivoting, whatever that looks like. Either he'll get something back from the Canadians or get something back from that country that he feels is enough to where he can pivot.
Yeah. Do you see that the second lady is going to Greenland?
I saw there's a contingent going to Greenland. Now, Greenland is a whole different deal.
There,
because strategically, Greenland is very important. When you look at what's happening with Russia and with China and the Arctic. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that transpires.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen the next day. It's
going to be
but Greenland will be an outpost for the United States military.
Well, it has been.
It has been, but it'll be a much larger player
probably
than it has been in the past.
Yeah.
And if anything, maybe back off on all that money we're spending in Europe and all the pain and suffering we're getting from them, and put some of that money in Greenland.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Europe, so
Is that a good segue?
That was a great segue. Thank you. I think Zelensky's going to sign the deal on the rare earth minerals this week.
I heard that deal was almost dead because he was. Is that happening this week?
I thought it was happening this week, but
okay.
Maybe we'll have to check in on our episode on Thursday to confirm. So, but anyway, be on the lookout for that
But you have a limited ceasefire right now.
Yeah, or the talk of. I mean, they haven't really agreed to it yet, and so fluid situation.
Yeah,
lots of fluid situations across the world. But
Hamas is getting their butts kicked.
Yeah,
again.
And we're what are we 50 some days into this administration, and the
Houthis are still getting their butts kicked.
We're only a little bit more than halfway to the 100-day mark.
Yeah,
there's still a lot has happened, and still a lot.
So will we have now a new marker? Has Trump created a new marker? It's not the first 100 days; it's the first 40.
Well, I mean, we talked about his first week.
Yeah,
being more productive than most presidents' first year.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
So I'm looking forward to the 100-day mark so we can kind of catalog the successes and whatever failures. We can talk about those too, because not everything has been a success, but there have been some tremendous successes.
Yeah,
and credit to Mike Johnson as the Speaker of the House to keep the House Republicans, other than Tom Massey, together on a lot of this stuff, almost all the stuff, the big stuff for sure. I mean,
well, we're still waiting to see how the Trump tax cuts play out over the next several weeks, several months. That needs to be the number one focus. And we received a little update last week from our good friend David Schweiker.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of concern about the math.
Well,
especially with the new tax cuts.
Yeah.
And making it work, because as he put it quite plainly, don't want to put words in his mouth because he's not here, but there's still a lot of people, as he puts it, his brothers and sisters, not across the aisle, but in the same aisle, who don't want to cut spending.
Yeah.
Who really don't want to cut spending.
Yeah. Well, and I think
that's
this is
the name of the game.
This is a point that I think Congressman John Shadegg made. He pointed out, and I repeated it on the podcast before, but Congress will never do the cuts that we're seeing, like what Elon Musk accomplishing through Doge.
Yeah.
Because there's no incentives. The incentives are not built in there. And I don't know how we fix that. I mean, a line item veto would be a big step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Reagan had one when he was governor of California and utilized it extensively.
Yeah.
And was frustrated that he didn't have it when he was president. I presume that.
Well, the game after Reagan was elected it's the electoral game. I mean, for a lot of people in Congress, I know that if I am tagged with cutting spending, I might lose my job. I know if I'm tagged with raising taxes, I'm going to lose my job.
Yeah.
So we don't cut spending and we don't raise anybody's taxes. And now we're in this pressure cooker, especially with entitlements, where something has to give.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to see mandatory cuts within the next 8 years.
Yeah. It's going to it could potentially get very ugly.
If Bush had really stood firm and pushed for Social Security reform back in 20 years ago, we would be in a much better place.
We would, but I don't know that I blame Bush, because he tried, and I remember, Shadegg had town halls on this. We did a series of town halls with all of the charts, and the left, the progressives, went crazy over the idea of personal accounts. Saying that we're privatizing Social Security, which all we were doing is saying, let's take 15% and put it in the market as a stopgap. You know how much that would be worth these days? I mean, every
tremendous.
Social Security recipient would be a millionaire.
Yeah, tremendous.
But it's too late.
Yeah, and now we're heading towards the fiscal cliff.
Yeah,
primarily because of Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare.
Yeah. Social Security.
It's not
Medicare.
it's not the defense budget pushing us over the cliff.
No. It's not discretionary spending at all. I mean, that's the problem. It's all the mandatory spending.
So it's going to be a big shakeup at some point.
Yeah.
People are going to have to. They're going to have to make decisions. Either you're going to raise the retirement age and increase payroll taxes. You have to do a combination of a number of things.
Yeah.
To make it solvent, and you have to freeze spending. Even freezing spending is like this crazy thing.
They call it a cut because everyone expects that the next year is going to be more. So if you freeze it at this year's, well, that's a cut because we were supposed to have more. It's a problem, folks. We've got.
I'm all in favor of trying to find a way to go back to the 2019 baseline on the budget, but there's not enough political will to even consider that.
Yeah,
even consider it. Because whatever we were budgeting before COVID, blew it up to $7 trillion or whatever it is. That's where we should go back to.
Yeah. I mean, too much of the quote unquote one-time spending became programmatic spending.
We saw it then.
Yeah. And that's happened at every level of government. I mean, schools have done it, cities have done it, states have done it, counties have done it. They took one-time spending that were a gift from the feds, plugged it into their regular baseline, and now it's like, oh my gosh, we don't have enough money.
Well, I mean, that's where you're going to really see the impact over the next several years. There was a great article in the Wall Street Journal about Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is about to head over a fiscal cliff.
Yeah,
because they took all that money, they spent it on whatever they spent it on, and now they have their economic growth is almost zero. They have no new redevelopment. Their tax base is declining. People are leaving. Obviously, you have the fires that have completely decimated an entire populace, and so they're heading over a fiscal cliff.
Yeah,
and that is just one example amongst many. San Francisco, Chicago, New York, they're all going over a fiscal cliff,
right? Because
so much cash was injected during the COVID years, 5 years ago, and they use that as their new baseline.
Yeah. Yeah.
The gravy train is ending.
Oh, I wanted to talk,
there is hope on that.
Yeah. This is another thing that gives me a lot of hope. Demographics.
Oh,
let me explain. So there have been a number of thought pieces and analysis out there done by both Democrats and Republicans and people who are not either, just analysts. But the Democrats have, there's a few smart Democrats that are looking into the future and saying, we have a deep problem, a real problem. And that is...
it's funny because for years they were saying, we're going to have a permanent majority.
Well, yeah. I mean, I go back to, I think it was the January issue of Time magazine. It might have been, maybe it was right after the election of 2008, but it was either January of 2009 or it was late 2008 after Obama got elected. And, keep in mind, Republicans lost the majorities in the House and Senate in 2006. Then Obama gets elected in 2008. And Time magazine has a cover story that says, "Is the Republican Party dead?"
Yeah.
Like literally, they wrote articles.
Wasn't the subtext, we're all socialists now or something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah.
But the point of the article was to say the Republican Party is gone forever, gone for a generation, that they are in the wilderness. There's no coming back. 2 years later, the Republicans won the House of Representatives. And was it 4 years after that?
Yeah.
2014, when they won the Senate back. So it was a short-lived wilderness. And then in 2016, Trump wins. So now you have a situation where Republicans have won the Senate. They held the House. Trump gets elected in a landslide with an electoral college vote that's commanding and a national popular vote. So if you look at the map and you look at the projections of the 2030 census, and you look at where population shifts are happening, the Democrat in 2032, if they won all of the states that Kamala won, and they won Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Arizona, the Democrat would still lose.
Because of reapportionment. Did you read Jim Ellis's column this morning?
I did not see the one this morning.
They have a demographic issue too.
Well, yeah.
I mean, young people are going to the Republican Party in droves, and they haven't really now. The real postmortem studies. What his premise was, the real postmortem studies of the election are coming out now.
Now coming out, yeah.
Now really coming out, like the really deep studies, and the shift in African Americans, Hispanics, and young people were dramatic.
Yeah,
to Trump.
Well, I mean, think about this. Trump did better among 18 to 29-year-olds than people over the age of 75.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
what?
But and I haven't read the whole article. I just kind of skimmed it, and I haven't delved into the studies. But with young people, this is the COVID generation.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about the assault on faith, freedom, free enterprise, the founding principles of this podcast and our country, it was COVID.
Yeah.
And now the truth of so many of those policies are coming to light, and people are pissed.
Yeah.
And I don't think any group is more upset than the young people who had to endure what they had to endure.
Right.
The mass policies, the forced vaccinations, the shutdown of their schools, the shutdown of their communities. That's what the Democrats are dealing with.
Yeah. I
would conjecture.
Well, I mean,
completely.
It's clear. I mean, that's one of their big problems is that it's not just that, they leaned in on the woke. I mean, I think, Rahm Emanuel.
And with young men can't be women.
Right.
And with young women, I don't want a guy racing against me in track.
Right.
It's really simple stuff.
I mean, Rahm Emanuel, who is probably a good chance of running for president in 2028 on the Democrat side, has pointed out that the Democrat Party used to be a party of conservatives, moderates, and liberals, and now it's just liberals.
And leftists.
But hardly.
I mean, look at AOC and Bernie on their oligarchy tour.
Speaking of
which they were here this weekend.
And they were here, and people were like, 15,000 people.
There was not 15,000 people in that little arena.
There might have been. Okay, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's say it's 15.
It doesn't really hold that much.
It doesn't matter. Let's say it's 15,000. Here's the interesting thing. There's somebody that's actually looked at the metadata of the cell phones of people who attend those rallies.
Oh, okay.
And 90% of the cell phones at the Tempe rally had been at previous either a BLM rally or protest, a pro-Palestinian rally or protest, or a Kamala Harris rally. And so
they are the dedicated Marxists.
Yeah, it is the small, I mean, it is not indicative of a broad movement.
No. They are the dedicated Marxists. The dedicated cultural
probably are being
Marxists.
paid.
Of course.
To be there. Probably being paid.
They're getting paid right on their cell phone.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yay, AOC.
In fact, I think for the next episode we'll do a deep dive on the demographic and the map going forward in the next couple of elections. I mean, clearly the electoral map is going to be the same for the next presidential election, but in 2032 it will be different because of the census. And we'll also do an analysis of the participants, the attendees at Democrat events.
Yeah. And if you were to listen to the press, you would have thought that it was the second coming of Jesus.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Because they see 15,000 people and they think, oh my gosh, look at this.
Look at
this energy.
It's
and Bernie Sanders saying, oh, I didn't have this many people when I was running for president. Yeah, you think?
Well, because nobody was paying them to be there.
Right. And they're, it's probably not that hard to get some of these people activated because they are very unhappy that they lost.
Yeah.
But it's a small number in comparison to real voters.
But you know how much I really love Sandy Cortez?
Enough to just repeat the same. Her name is not Sandy. It's Alexandria.
No, it's Sandy.
It's Alexandria.
When she was that's a made up name.
It's not made up. That's her birth certificate.
Her name is Sandy Cortez.
Sandy is not on her birth certificate.
Bartender.
I'm going to push back on this every time you do it.
That's fine. You can push back all you want. Her name is Sandy.
She's an elected official.
I understand that.
Deserves a little bit of respect, even though you don't respect her at all. She's fine. But
no, I'm actually going to give her some props right now for the first time. She is the heir apparent to Bernie Sanders.
True.
They're making that known because of this
obvious,
oligarchy to her, and she's going to be very dangerous moving forward.
She is dangerous.
Yeah,
she is dangerous. I agree.
Yeah, very dangerous. And so watch this space.
But that's the very point that she's dangerous is why I think trying to minimize her by calling her by Sandy.
I don't minimize her. I address her for the reality that she is. Justice Democrats, held an audition. She won the audition. She eked out a victory, and now she's become this cultural phenomenon because she parrots whatever Justice Democrats wants her to parrot.
She is.
I don't believe that she's like a free thinker. No.
Well, I think she's probably deep enough into it that she actually thinks these things now. I mean, she doesn't have to be fed everything.
Yeah,
she's indoctrinated enough into.
Yeah,
that is who she is.
But the idea that it's the hypocrisy just drives me crazy.
Well, I mean,
how many homes does Bernie have? 3. So Miss Cortez, I'll just call her Ms. Cortez.
What's wrong with AOC?
Lives in near the Washington Nationals ballpark.
Yeah, she lives at the wharf.
At the wharf in a $1 million condo.
Yeah,
where'd she get all that money?
I don't know.
Where'd Bernie get all that money?
Well, I mean, look, she took a huge pay increase when she got elected to Congress.
Well, I know, but it's $140 grand, $176 grand,
75, 74, something like that. Yeah. That's real money.
$1 million condo at the wharf.
We don't know whether she owns it or she rents it, though.
Oh,
right?
okay.
I mean, we don't know.
Or somebody else owns it.
Maybe. That's possible too.
Yeah, that's normally kind of what happens.
It could happen. All right. Well, I think we've covered a fair amount. Yeah. Well,
for the record, our friend Big Dan McCarthy calls her Sandy because they lived in the same building for a while.
Okay. All right.
She goes by Sandy.
Okay. Whatever you say.
Anyway, that is a movement that will continue.
No, yes. Look, Democrats are in complete chaos, and there's going to be, efforts to fill the void, and she and Bernie are doing what they're trying to do to fill the void, which is not good for the country in the long run. So we'll have to push back.
The oligarchs are going after the oligarchs. It's really, really an interesting thing. Just remember when the left accuses you of something.
It's just not their oligarchs. Yeah. That's what they're.
When the left is accusing you of something, they're doing it in spades.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, shout out to one of our sponsors, Americans Prosperity Arizona. Appreciate the support. Check them out. They're fighting hard for the tax increase or tax extension.
Yes.
Tax cuts, permanent tax cuts.
And shout out to the University of Arizona Wildcats.
Oh, yeah.
Sweet 16 bound against the Dukies.
Yeah. So next week, we'll be able to have a conversation about, because the final will be next Monday.
So we've got Sweet 16 starting Thursday, and then Elite 8, and then
do we do another week
before we get to the
final?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we can talk about the Elite 8, or we can talk about who's going to be in the final.
Final four
next week's episode.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Cats can do it.
I mean,
they got if they play defense like they did against Oregon this weekend, they can do it.
Well, this is one of those bracket busters because a lot of people, including Barack Obama, have picked Duke.
Yeah. Well, Duke has got all the.
So
Duke's got everything.
I think I'm in 4 different pools. In at least, I think in 2 of the pools. Yeah, 2 of the pools I had St. John's going all the way.
John Calipari.
Woo! That went south.
John Calipari he's wearing the jacket, the Arkansas, plaid jacket. It's great. I love it.
And then the other half of the other 2 brackets, I've got Duke. So I did not pick Arizona.
Oh,
much to my brother-in-law's chagrin.
I don't think a lot of people picked Arkansas either. But there we go.
Right. All righty. Well, on that happy note,
yes,
go Cats.
That is a happy note. Go Cats.
All right.
God bless.
Take care.
Bye-bye.